first of all, change is happening faster and faster and faster. So if you look at Moore's law, it says that $1,000 worth of compute power doubles every 18 months. That is now happening every 12 months. So even the acceleration of change is accelerating. And what that means to me is that every 12 months or so, we have an opportunity to completely reinvent what the people a year before had done. And so as entrepreneurs, you always have an opportunity to jump on something and make something really interesting happen. And throughout my career, I've been able to be involved in some amazing companies. And those companies have transformed industries, and all because they sort of jumped way ahead in Moore's law. So I talked to all these entrepreneurs, and I'll get to why I end up talking to all these entrepreneurs. I have a school. And I always tell them, they always come to me, hey, what do you think of this idea? What do you think of this idea? I always say, well, you know, it's a good idea, but it's sort of 6 months out idea. You need something 15 years out. You need to be thinking about something nobody else is thinking about and take a chance that all of these things fall in line and you win in 15 years. That's tough for people to fathom. Think about what 15 years from now, what are we going to be doing? I mean, we might have Iron Man suits. We might have, it will probably have cures for all the things that ail us. The average age will probably, I mean, people will probably live, what is it? You live 3 years, you get one free. I think that's what's basically happening. If we live 3 more years, we get one free. So I think we'll be like 110 as an average lifespan by then. What else could potentially happen in the next 15 years? Well, we don't need flying cars because we have the Iron Man suits. Bitcoin probably be 500 different currencies that we work with, and probably 100 of them will be virtual currencies. There are going to be some interesting things happening. So change is really an important factor. And we have to adjust as humans to change faster too. We have to all adjust as customers. So think about what has happened in the past. Okay, I've been fortunate to be a part of some of these transformations. I backed these 2 guys who came to me and they said, hey, we want to, they gave me one idea, and then they said, oh no, we got this other idea. It's free web-based email. And I thought, well, that's interesting. And how do you make money? And they kind of looked at me with a blank stare, but it's free. I said, but you need to make money. You need to be sustainable. You need to live. And anyway, they created, they were so bold that I gave them some money, and then they said, it's up, you can go ahead and use this free web-based email. And I looked at them and I said, well, okay, this is great. How are you going to get the word out that you have free web-based email? And they said, oh, we're going to buy TV ads. And I said, well, wait, we gave you $125,000. That's a nanosecond of airtime on TV. You got to think of something else. And they said, how about billboards? And I said, still too expensive. And then I said, well, can't you just get it out to all those guys and that are on this internet? And they said, well, that would be spamming. So that was a new word for me. And then I said, well, what if you put a little message at the bottom of everybody's screen that says, P.S. I love you, get your free email at Hotmail. And they said, oh God, of all the investors we could have had, why did we end up with this one? But I kept pounding, and finally they did it, and it spread to 11 million users in 18 months. Well, the reason I'm telling you this is that was the beginning of a whole new way of marketing, viral marketing, and it allows people to spread their product throughout the world faster than ever before, and it and it transformed the post office, completely changed the way the post office operates. There was no need for letters and licking poison and putting, writing on an envelope and putting it into a car, to a plane, to another car. And so that transformation, I always thought the post office was going to be the post office was going to be the post office when I was growing up, and suddenly this changed everything. We could communicate with anybody, anywhere around the world very quickly, and as a result, all creative products could be spread faster around the world than ever before. And we wouldn't have to fly to South America to sell something to somebody in South America. We just come up with something and tell them by email. Fast forward to my European experience. Well, I've had some bad European experiences. I don't have to go through all of those. I lost. Well, okay. I don't know which way to go here, but we'll go to Skype because that was a European success, and I wanted to back these guys who had failed at Kazaa because the music industry had sued them out of existence, and this was another transformation. It transformed the music industry. The way it used to be was, you'd sell these big LPs or these CDs through various channels, and those channels were all controlled, and radio was all controlled, and suddenly, music got blown out by Kazaa. Well, these same guys were saying, hey, this is really interesting technology, let's take it into another direction. And they came to me with one idea, and I said, great idea, and then and I'm ready to fund you. And then they said, well, no, we've changed our minds. We're going to go after the telephone companies. And with this technology, we can actually do free phone calls. And once again, I sort of say, well, then how are you going to make money? And they say, oh, well, if you're not on the Skype system, we'll make them pay. And I said, okay, at least these guys were coming up with some business model to pay. And I loved it. I thought it was great. And then we funded Skype. And it was all audio. And there were about 3 million users. And there was a time when I had to be in 2 places at once. I had to be in Palo Alto giving a talk to some people, and I had to be at a Skype board meeting in Estonia. And I didn't know how to bridge that gap. And I said to the Skype guys, well, look, can you set up a video conferencing system there? And at that time, video conference was, you never saw, you'd see pixels, and it was not so great. And then I thought, and in Estonia, this is going to be crazy. Maybe it'll just be a picture of us and then a phone call. But they said, okay, we'll set up the video conference. And I didn't know what they were doing. And just before, I sat down with Nicholas, because I was going to interview him for these people in Palo Alto, Nicholas Zenstrom, who started Skype. And I sat down with him, and he looks over my shoulder and he goes, okay, throw the switch. And I thought, what? What? He said, no problem. And then we did this video conference, and I said, well, how did it go, to Tony Perkins, who was running the conference in Palo Alto. He said, it was perfect. We could see the pores on your face. And I said, really? That's fantastic. And Nicholas has got this little smug look on his face, and and I said, what? And he goes, that was the first Skype video call ever. And I said, you used a beta for this? And he said, yeah, and it worked. And I said, yeah, it worked fantastic. We got a big winner. And he goes, no, not so fast, Tim. We cut off 100,000 simultaneous phone calls to get the bandwidth to do the Skype call. So you entrepreneurs, you will do whatever it takes to make your business successful. And if you really have that in your heart, that there's a mission and you're transforming an industry, you will do whatever it takes. And I think that's a great thing about entrepreneurship. It's so good for every economy, Europe's sort of the tale of two cities now. I mean, you've got some countries that are really rocking it because they've got a light touch government, and then you've got some countries that are just a disaster because they've got either corrupt governments or broke governments, in the case of Greece. It's interesting. I was in Greece about 20 years ago, and there was something that came to me where I decided I wasn't going to invest in Greece. And this is why. I ran in, okay, as I got to my hotel, the woman at the desk gave me my room key, and then she said, I'm way overqualified for this job. And I said, oh, well, you know, why? What did you do? Well, I'm just well educated, and you know. And then I thought, that's weird. We never hear that here. And then I went and I got into a taxi on my way back, and the taxi driver said, you know, I'm highly educated, and I don't, you know, but I'm better than what my job is. And I thought, oh, that's very interesting. And then I got to the counter at the airline, and they said, and the woman there, this is amazing, she said, you know, I'm overqualified for this job. And I started to think, you know, maybe this is a cultural thing that they feel like they're overqualified for their jobs. Jobs are great things. You know, a job, you can make jobs fantastic, no matter what you do. And then I go to Asia, and I see in Japan, the taxi driver with this incredible pride has these special, they look like doilies, and they're on your seats. And I say, what are these for? And I want to keep my cab clean. I'm very proud. I've been a cab driver for 12 years. I'm very happy with what I've done. You know, I've been one of the best cab drivers for, you know, all of these years. And then I go to China, and they say, I say, well, God, I don't know. You think you can do this? I'm Chinese. I can do anything. And it was it was like shoveling, you know, manure or something. You know, I will do anything. I can do anything. So that gave me hesitation, and I thought, you know, real pride, if you can create real pride in your companies and in your job and in everything you do, and have nothing that is too low for you and nothing that is too high for you, you will be a great success. And more importantly, you will send a very strong message to your friends in Europe. And you'll say, look, no, we love what we do. We're going for it. We're going to make great things happen. You know, and we're going to change the entire thinking here. So if any of you are from Greece, I encourage you to do that. I think it'll make a big difference to your government. It's good to see entrepreneurs from Greece. 3, oh my God. Actually, we're seeing a big influx coming from the country because, you know, when a government's falling apart, the good people leave. Of course, you know, they may be bypassing us and moving on to another country soon. That light touch government is important too. And a government that's very clear about its rules. Singapore was not particularly light touch, but they were so clear about their rules that businesses thrived because businesses knew exactly what they were allowed to do. Here in the US, now, if you're a Bitcoin company, do you have any idea what your rules are? If you're a fintech company, do you have any idea what your rules are? Actually, in England, they are being much more clear about what a fintech company is allowed to do and what a Bitcoin company is allowed to do and how it's treated. Here, it's this nebulous thing like, well, don't do anything really bad or the SEC is going to come after you. You don't hear, this is what you're allowed to do, this is what you're not allowed to do. And I think a clear business climate is very important, and a light touch makes you really thrive. If they did the same, fortunately in the US, they let the internet rip. They let it thrive. and nobody got in the way of this incredible growth in this amazing technology. Here we've got Bitcoin. It's an equivalent kind of technology. It's so extraordinary. And the blockchain, so extraordinary. And we've got all of these people trying to line up and protect against it. So I actually think that it will be an interesting time, because I've noticed that some other countries are being very active and aggressive in attracting people who are starting Bitcoin companies. Korea and Japan actually has two of them. And now I got to tell you this other interesting story. I believe that governments at this point, because we can all move, geographic borders are falling, governments have to compete for us. And they're just starting to recognize that, but you know, the EU is still a big bureaucratic nightmare. The US, big bureaucratic nightmare. They've got to figure this out. Estonia has figured it out. That prime minister from Estonia spent 9 years here in the Silicon Valley, and then he went back and he got elected president, and he's 33, 34 years old. He instituted one very simple thing. We're going to take digital signatures. They are legal here. He saved 2% of his GDP just doing that. Then he said, we're going to take digital voting. We're going to have digital voting. You know, you can vote on this thing. And he goes, and by doing that, all the young people started to vote. And then he said, we're going to do digital identity, and he doesn't know yet, but he thinks that's going to lower the crime rate. And the reason I know this is that he came to Draper University to speak, and the students were, you know, thrilled to get this prime minister coming to speak to them. But the thing that clicked in my mind was, okay, we've had, because I'm a venture capitalist, I'm always looking for these trends. We have transformed, the taxi business. We've transformed the mail business. We've transformed the telecommunications business. Media, communications, all sorts of information is very different. All those things have been transformed. What hasn't been transformed yet by the internet? Anything that had some sort of government intervention in it. Government has slowed down the progress of some of these other industries, but the wave is coming. And so I'm looking and I'm saying, okay, what are those industries? Okay, I think finance is going to be completely reinvented. I think healthcare is going to be completely reinvented. I think education, completely reinvented, and government itself, completely reinvented. So I'm looking at those, and you know, what else? Real estate. Anything that has any kind of government getting involved, it's going to be reinvented, because governments have gotten so big and bulky. I mean, in 1900, when government was 8% of the GDP here, nobody thought that in, 2015, government would be 50% of our GDP. And in Europe, it's probably even worse. 50%, half of our economy is government. I don't know what we're thinking, but somehow that's happened. They've been able to grow, and the private sector has not been able to defend itself, I think, is basically what's happened. Anyway, what's going to happen is they're going to fall under their own weight. What our industry does, what all you entrepreneurs do, is you transform industries that are getting fat and lazy and bureaucratic. And you go after them, and everything changes. And we have big opportunities out there to transform all of these industries. And we have the technology to do it. So this is really an exciting time. And technology wins all battles. The technology has won all the wars. You know, I mean, whoever got gunpowder, they won their war. You know, whoever had Oh, Star Wars won the Cold War. That was kind of cool. I don't even think we even had anything. I think it was a bluff, but